real experiences, real moments, and a past that has shaped the way people see him today. But when he sat down for a prison interview and started talking about what really went down behind bars, people knew they were about to hear something different. He spoke about moments that defined his time inside, moments of power, and moments where respect had to be earned the hard way. One of the most talked about parts of his interview was when he addressed putting hands on 50 Cent. Everyone knows that 50 Cent is not someone who backs down from a fight, whether it's in business, music, or the streets. But Big U made it clear that things were different when they crossed paths in a certain situation. He didn't go into full details, but the way he described the moment left no doubt that it was intense. There was tension, there was history, and in a place like prison, respect is everything. If you don't stand your ground, you're done. And according to Big U, he had to make sure his presence was felt. Then came the discussion about Wack 100. Wack is another figure who doesn't shy away from confrontation. He's known for speaking his mind, calling people out, and making sure his name stays in the conversation. But what happens when a personality like that is tested in an environment where words don't mean much? Big U spoke about how certain situations unfold in prison, where there's no social media, no security, no managers or entourages, just men, face to face, handling things the way they have to be handled. He hinted at moments where Wack 100 had to navigate situations that weren't as easy as just talking tough. One of the most gripping parts of the interview was when Big U described something out of a fight movie, UFC-style fights inside the prison. According to him, there were inmates who trained like professional fighters, men who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. They would create makeshift cages, lock themselves in, and settle beefs in the most brutal way possible. No referees, no rounds, no rules, just two men fighting until one couldn't fight anymore. He painted a picture of the kind of gladiator environment that exists behind those walls, where only the strongest survive, and where every fight is about more than just pride. It's about survival. Big U didn't just talk about the violence. He talked about what it meant. He spoke about how prison changes a person, how it strips away everything you think you are and forces you to see yourself for what you truly are. Some people break under that pressure. Others rise and become something more dangerous, more calculated. He explained that respect in prison isn't just about who can fight. It's about who can command a room, who can make things happen, and who has the type of presence that forces people to listen. And according to Big U, he was one of those people. The stories he shared weren't just about fighting. They were about a world that most people will never see, a world where survival is a daily challenge. He explained that there are rules in prison that the outside world doesn't understand. It's not just about being tough. It's about knowing when to move, when to stay still, when to speak, and when to strike. It's about understanding that everything has a consequence, and one wrong move can change your entire future. When the topic of 50 Cent came up again, Big U made it clear that whatever happened, it was real. It wasn't just something to hype up a story or make headlines. It was a moment where two men stood on what they believed in. And in prison, that means everything. He didn't try to claim dominance over 50, but he let it be known that when the time came, he did what he had to do. Wack 100's name came up again as well, and Big U didn't hold back on how things play out differently when there are no cameras. He explained that the energy people have outside prison doesn't always translate when they're put in a position where they have to back it up physically. It's one thing to talk about street life. It's another thing to live it in an environment where every action has an immediate reaction. As for the UFC-style prison fights, Big U described them as some of the most intense moments he had ever witnessed. There were no weight classes, no protective gear, no mercy. Just two men stepping into a makeshift cage and proving who was stronger, faster, and tougher. These fights weren't just for sport. They were about establishing dominance. They were about settling issues in the most primal way possible. And once it was over, there were no rematches. The result was final. Big U's interview wasn't just about entertainment. It was a lesson in survival, power, and respect. He made it clear that prison is a place where you either adapt or get eaten alive. He explained that the things people glorify in rap music, the fights, the power struggles, the street politics, are very different when you're actually living in that environment. He wanted people to understand that behind the stories, there's real pain, real consequences, and real lessons that not everyone survives to learn. The way Big U spoke made it clear that he's seen things that most people can't even imagine. He's been in situations that would break most men. But he didn't just survive, he thrived. And now, as he shares these stories, people are listening, because they know that when Big U speaks, he's not just telling a story. He's giving people a glimpse into a world that only a few truly understand.